2020 started just like any other year in Kent, but then it hit us. There was no playbook for what we were about to face. Businesses closed, leaving hallways and office spaces deserted, leaving tables and chairs vacant. Our streets, once overflowing with daily commuters, now abandoned. Our shopping centers, once filled with the hustle of life, empty. We didn't know how long this was going to last. We didn't know what new things were coming tomorrow. But we did know that together, we could make it through. The road ahead of us was uncertain, but we knew we weren't going to let this beat us. It was time to pull together. It was time to change. Businesses and residents came together and quickly adapted to these unprecedented times. We implemented new ways to serve the community and started to discover new habits on how to interact with our neighbors. This was a new beginning. We quickly acclimated to our new environment. While restaurants offered new takeout services, everybody set a new standard of cleanliness in the workplace. From pens, wiping down surfaces, and wearing masks, our community shaped our new normal. Kent had faced many obstacles and crises in our past. We pulled together as a community and took care of each other. People from every walk of life stepped up to help their neighbors. Those who had something to give, gave it. With the worst behind us, let's not forget, there are brighter days coming to Kent. The business
Good evening and welcome to the Kent City Council meeting for September 15th, 2020. This is a remote meeting this evening due to the COVID-19 crisis, and by order of the governor. We do have a live broadcast of our meeting this evening on Kent TV 21, on our the City of Kent Facebook page, as well as our YouTube channel, which is Kent TV 21. There are also options available for calling into this meeting as well. With that, Kim, could you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Ralph.
Here.
Council President Troutner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Core.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud. Oh, you are muted. Councilmember Thomas. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. With that, we'll move on to item number 3, which is the approval of the agenda. Council President Troutner, do you have any changes this evening?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to take item 8E from the consent calendar and move that to other business.
All right. Thank you. And CAO Matheson, do you have any changes?
Yes, I'd recommend the council add a new item 8E, an excused absence for Councilmember Les Thomas, who is ill this evening.
All right. So we have 2 changes to the agenda. With that, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda with those changes.
Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number 4 on our agenda, which is public communications. We do have two items under public recognition this evening. They are both proclamations. The first is a proclamation for Diaper Need Awareness Week, and I would like to read this to everyone. The proclamation says, whereas diaper need, the condition of not having a sufficient supply of clean diapers, can adversely affect the health and well-being of babies, toddlers, and their families. And whereas national surveys and research studies report that 1 in 3 families struggles with diaper need and 48% of families delay changing a diaper to extend their supply. And whereas children go through 6 to 12 diapers each day, and without enough diapers, babies and toddlers risk infections and health problems. And whereas purchasing enough diapers to keep a baby or toddler clean, dry, and healthy can consume 14% of a low-wage family's post-tax income, making it difficult to obtain a sufficient supply. And whereas the people of Kent recognize diaper need as a public health issue, disproportionately harming Black families, Indigenous families, and families of color, and acknowledge that addressing diaper need will lead to more equitable economic opportunities and improved health for all children. And whereas Westside Baby and Eastside Baby Corner serve on the front lines of Kent's COVID-19 pandemic response, helping families in our communities weather the crisis. And whereas Kent is proud to be home of trusted community-based organizations that recognize the importance of diapers in ensuring health and providing economic stability for families, and thus distribute diapers to families through various channels. Now, therefore, I, Dana Ralph, Mayor of the City of Kent, do hereby proclaim the week of September 21st through September 27th as Diaper Need Awareness Week in the City of Kent. Thank the aforementioned diaper banks, their staff, volunteers, and donors for their courageous service during the crisis, and encourage the citizens of Kent to donate generously to diaper banks, diaper drives, and those organizations that collect and distribute diapers to those struggling with diaper need, so that all of Kent's children and families can thrive and reach their full potential. This proclamation is one that we present every year, and it's even more important this year during the COVID crisis. I know in working with our community partners at Kent Community Partners, We Love Kent. It's one of the things that they are most in need of and get the most requests for. I heard a statistic this last week that a family with 2 children in diapers can spend upwards of $100 in diapers in a given week. And that is a significant amount of money, especially with so many families that are in need right now. So I would ask all of our community members that when you're thinking about places to donate, really do take time to think about maybe diapers and wipes, because it's something that we're seeing as a great need in our community at this time. The next proclamation I have is for one of our very own Kent companies, Odom Corporation. And it's a celebration of their 86 years as a local family-owned business within our community. As a neighborhood beverage distributor, the Odom Corporation ensures refreshment is delivered to our city every single day. With 249 local employees here in Kent, the Odom Corporation ensures that a dedicated workforce and transportation infrastructure is a driving force within their environment to build a cohesive network and support their Washington neighbors. And whereas since its start in Juneau, Alaska in 1934, the Odom Corp has rapidly expanded its local footprint to 9 locations in Washington, including Kent. And whereas the Odom Corp is fortunate to benefit from local hiring, having hired 105 graduates and 37 local colleges within Washington just this past year. Overall, Odom Corp is honored to employ 331 active alumni from local Washington colleges. And whereas to further support local education, Odom Corp financially supports 3 local scholarships that have been awarded to Washington graduates in the total of $40,000 to be used for their college need. And whereas Odom outfitted their Washington facilities with balers, recyclers, and office recycling receptacles to ensure team members are sustainably engaging while continuously considering how to properly manage their footprint. And whereas these implementations have allowed Odom Corp, along with their 249 local team members, to better serve their community, the forefront of their focus is their local neighbors and community events that strengthen our city and state. Odom Corp continuously supports local events through volunteer work, and to better support the internal Odom Corp team members, Odom built a tradition of recognition and training to adapt to growing needs. Their employees are continually honored in annual employee appreciation events and truck rodeos. Now, therefore, I, Dana Ralph, Mayor of Kent, do hereby proclaim the week of September 21st through 27th as Odom Corporation Appreciation Week in the city of Kent, and recognize the Odom Corp for their 86 years of service to the community in honoring the traditions that have built this state and company to further strengthen our people. It's always a great thing to support our local employers. This is a big milestone for Odom Corporation. They reached out and provided us with this information. I want to say that it's just another one of those companies that we're really proud of to have here in Kent. And you can hear from that proclamation that they are continuously finding ways to support our students, our residents, and the environment. And those are all really important things for us here in the city. So thank you, Odom Corp, for calling Kent home. With that, we are going to move on to community events. Council President Troutner, do you have any events?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have one event to share. Let's talk about the census. There's an event coming up this Sunday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. hosted by the city. It's at Hogan Park at Russell Road, and it's for census help. So the first 200 people will get 2 free tacos from Costanita Pacific Northwest. There will also be a limited amount of We Are Kent reusable masks and hand sanitizer. But the most important thing is you can come and get help completing your census. There will be people there to help. And we still have some people out there that need to complete that 2020 census. And it's very important that we include you. So this Sunday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., there will also be another event very similar at Wilson Field on the 27th. So if you have not completed that census, please do think about participating. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Council President. Any other community events? All right. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Do want to follow up on what Council President Troutner said. It's extremely important that all of our residents complete the census. It takes about 5 minutes. At the event, there will be people there that can help you log in and complete that event. But you can go online and like I said, it's just a few questions, takes about 5 minutes, and it matters to the city of Kent. We only do censuses every 10 years. So really want to make sure that every single one of our residents is counted, and it really determines our level of funding throughout the next 10 years and supports that our community can receive. So please take the time to complete that census. I also want to highlight some COVID testing resources. There are 3 locations that are testing for free in the city of Kent. 2 of them are by appointment, and one is that's Health Point and Seymour Clinic, and the third one is the COVID testing site at Shower Center. It's available every Thursday from 7 to 1, no appointment necessary, and it is free. Want to make sure that if you are experiencing any symptoms that could be COVID related, that you go and find a test. That is one of the best ways that we have to stop the spread of COVID, is making sure that people that have it know that they have it and they can properly quarantine and protect their loved ones and other community members. So lots of testing options here in the city of Kent.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
do you know what the activity have been like at some of those sites and the visibility for as people going and have the testing done? Just curious.
So I don't have things like wait times, but I can tell you that the one on Thursday at Shower has been very busy. So, and there is all the county has also expanded a couple of sites similar to that in Renton and Auburn. So always places to get that COVID testing. And you can also check out the King County website. So it's encouraging that people are out and getting tested. And we are starting to see our numbers go down as far as the number of positives per the number of tests and our population. So we're trending in the right direction, and getting tested is one way we can all ensure that that continues.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely. Okay, with that, we will move on to item 4C, which is our public safety report. And joining us this evening is Chief Padilla.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. It's my pleasure to bring you tonight's report. Thank you, Kim, for bringing up the PowerPoint. If you want to click on the first slide there. So I'm going to start the report tonight with announcement of some life-saving medals that were awarded to our officers for acts that actually occurred back in April. It's been a while since we've brought these to council for our meetings, as obviously we've been engaged in other more pressing issues to discuss. So I'm glad that we could take some time to do this recognition. So there were 2 incidents. The first incident, here's a summary of what happened. On April 3rd, 2020, officers David Gadari and Officer Ian Lentz were dispatched to an unconscious and non-responsive male sitting in a vehicle in the parking lot of Safeway, the one up there on 108th. Upon arriving, they confirmed that the male was not breathing and quickly removed him from the vehicle so they could render first aid. Officer Gadari initiated CPR by doing chest compressions, while Officer Lentz began prepping an automatic electronic defibrillator, an AED. Around the same time, Puget Sound firefighters arrived on scene and took over placing the AED. Recognizing that this might be an overdose versus some other medical condition, Officer Lentz administered a dose of Narcan, which all of our officers carry. And these efforts, the efforts of the officers and Puget Sound regional firefighters resulted in ultimately saving the male's life. So that was a great effort on their part. Officer Gadari and Officer Lentz have been awarded the Kent Police Life-Saving Medal for their quick response, which ultimately resulted in saving the life of the male. So there's that first incident. The second one also involved Officer Lentz, same slide there, thank you, which happened just 3 weeks later, a little over a couple weeks later. So on April 19th, Officer Lentz was dispatched to a report of an unconscious 64-year-old male at a private residence on the East Hill. Officer Lentz arrived and quickly took over CPR. I believe it was family members who were on scene trying to do CPR. He took over and for a good amount of time conducted what is known as solo CPR, which is very physically intense and pretty stressful because you're there doing it yourself, until Puget Sound regional fire personnel arrived. And ultimately, Officer Lentz's actions were able to keep the male alive until more advanced life-saving services could be applied. So he was also awarded the Kent Police Life-Saving Medal for his efforts and compassionate response to save this man's life. It's notable that Officer Lentz had 2 in such a short time, but also Officer Gadari is a life-saving medal award winner from prior events. A couple things I'd add for context on this. I don't think most people realize that police officers are dispatched to almost every emergency medical call that comes out in the city through 911. And the reason for that is a lot of times because our officers are out deployed on active patrol, they're in closer proximity to these events, and most most often we arrive before fire personnel can get there. And so when you're talking about life-saving medical service, the motto is that minutes equal lives saved. So it's an important deal. King County actually leads the nation in CPR saves. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's a testament to our community. Another thing I'd note is that during the COVID pandemic, much like the firefighters and medical personnel in our hospitals, there's an increased exposure risk, right, for treating patients this way. But as with many of the things our officers respond to, they set aside their personal safety and get right in there and do what they can to help people and save lives. So I just thought it was important to note that. So thank you. Next slide there, Kim. Illegal street racing. So earlier this year, probably at the start of the pandemic, I noted in my report that we were starting to see an increase in illegal street racing, and that we were seeing where large crowds of people were taking advantage of the lockdown order that was coming from the governor's office to hang out at closed businesses and really come out with a lot of a bigger than normal size attendees and races. So the pictures you see there on the slide, I hope you can see them. The top one there is representative of what a racer gathering starts to look like when it first begins, people milling around, getting set up. And the bottom one is what it often turns into, with cars spinning out and racing, property damage. And more recently, we've seen an escalation both in the number of races and also the violence associated and the risk to it. If you've been watching the media, we've had recent shootings, most recently in Tacoma. We've had violence in Renton. And we've seen where now the racers are starting to completely take over highways such as 167, I-5, and I-405. So we have been working on this. It's been interesting regionally. For a lot of times at the state level, this has been looked at as a King County problem. Of course, in Kent, we've been dealing with it for decades. But now it's starting to spread, and this is getting attention kind of statewide because of the popularity and the increased danger. And one of the things that's notable is that in the last month, a couple of officers and troopers have been trying to intervene in these events and were surrounded, and basically they were attacked. So it's taken a turn in terms of the violence in a different way that we've seen in years past. Fortunately, we jumped on this back in April, we started, but over the course of July and August, we ran several weeks worth of emphasis patrols. We dedicated resources to this effort. Many of you may be aware that a popular gathering point, unfortunately in Kent, has become Dick's Drive-In and their parking lot there with Lowe's. So we've worked hard on it. The officers and sergeants got out there and they had some pretty good results. And so here are some statistics. 407 racers were contacted by the police. That doesn't mean that's the total of all that were out there. Those are the ones we were able to stop and contact and at least have a conversation with. Of that, 42 arrests were made, several for DUIs. 148 tickets were issued, 6 vehicles were impounded, and 2 stolen vehicles were recovered and in that effort. So those are pretty staggering numbers. And it's especially staggering when you realize that after the first couple of weeks that we conducted the emphasis, it became apparent to the racers that Kent wasn't the place to come to. There was a little bit of a cat and mouse there where they would come and see if we were going to be out there. And once they realized that this was a sustained effort, they kind of moved to other areas. So towards the latter parts of the emphasis, we saw the numbers and the attendees go down. So we know there was some impact. In more recent weeks, because this has become a greater issue, we've partnered with WSP, Seattle Police Department, all the Valley agencies, and others from Pierce and Snow County to pull our resources and kind of address this in a regional effort. It's really taken off, particularly in the South area of Pierce County. So we're working on it. The problem hasn't gone away, but we're doing everything we can to address it. So thank you. Next slide, please, Kim. And then last, I wanted to give you an update on the unfortunate homicide that we had yesterday up on our East Hill in the area of 240th and 109th at one of the apartment complexes up there. Just before 5 a.m., as you're probably aware, our officers responded to a fight in progress in the parking lot there that escalated into a stabbing. When officers arrived, they found an unconscious male laying in the parking lot with obvious stab wounds. They attempted life-saving measures, but unfortunately, the male did not survive. And so our patrol officers did an excellent job actually of securing the initial scene, preserving evidence, and starting to get the investigation going while our major crime detectives responded to take over the investigation. It doesn't always happen this way, but later that same day, the detectives were able to positively identify the suspect, locate where he was, and with the assistance of the Valley SWAT team, took him into custody without incident. So the suspect is in custody, and I can say definitively this is the person that was involved in the stabbing. So that was an incredible turnaround, and it's a testament to the expertise and relentless efforts of our detectives. But it's also a testament to the community, and that this was one of those incidents where community members were willing to come forward and provide information that helped our detectives solve the case. Unfortunately, I'd like to say that always happens, but it seems as though that has become less and less of what happens. And so it does hamstring us at times, but this was a case where I think our community members realized they wanted to do the right thing. And so we were able to put this together and get this person in custody. So with that, it's also important, I think, to remember that this was a tragic loss of life, regardless of the circumstances. And for that, I would offer my condolences to the family of the victim in this case. It certainly was a needless loss of life. So, Mayor, that concludes my report for tonight, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, Chief. I do see Council Member Boyce's hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, in the racing event, when you get the vehicles and you impound them, what's the process after that? Do we keep the vehicle and sell them, or just tell me how that process works, please?
So the process is they're held in evidence generally until the case is adjudicated, which can be a significant amount of time. There are fees and fines that come with that are leveled through the courts. But we don't just release the vehicle back to them. Unfortunately, the vehicle is ultimately released whether or not there's a conviction. So there isn't authority by state law to seize the vehicle, which is something I think the state legislature could consider, because that would be a definite deterrent. But unfortunately, like a lot of our arrests, they are released shortly after.
Are there any costs associated with that? I mean, if you guys, any cost to us, or do you put them in a wrecking yard and then they pay the wrecking yard?
Yes, so there is no cost to the city of Kent. We contract with tow companies that have to meet guidelines established by the State Patrol, but all the fees and costs are passed on to the car owner. Now, there is a process for them to challenge the impound, which happens kind of rarely, but there is a due process to ensure that if they want to contest the impound, there's a way to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for the chief? All right, I don't see any. Thank you very much for your report this evening, Chief. Okay, we are going to move on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is reports from council and staff. This is the opportunity of the evening to hear about the work that is being done outside of the regular city council or committee of the whole meetings. All of our council members are members of various regional committees, and that attendance at those meetings ensures that Kent's voice is being represented in the region, and making sure that we've got a seat at that table as those decisions are being made. I will start tonight with 2 brief reports, both transportation related. The first meeting is the Transportation Policy Board, of which I am the vice chair, and that's at Puget Sound Regional Council. We voted to move the Regional Transportation Improvement Program out for public comment. That is a list of regional projects that are currently underway during the years of 21 through 24, representing about $15.6 billion in investment in regional infrastructure. That plan is open for public comment. And you can go to psrc.org to provide comment on those projects that are on that list. We also had a presentation on transit funding and the formulas that are used with the federal funding that comes into our region, and a lot of robust discussion on things like equity in that process. So a lot of times the projects that have the most ridership are the ones that score higher in that process. And we talked about the fact that often it is areas that have a lower ridership that have a higher need. So think about more rural areas. The further you get away from the downtown core, we know that that's where we've got a significantly larger population of underserved population, low income residents. It's just too expensive to live downtown Seattle. So that makes sense, right? The further you get out, and there is less ridership there, and those transit organizations don't fare as well. So we're going to be looking at that through our project selection process next year. We also had some good conversation around how we can elevate safety as a criteria, as an area of focus in our project selection going forward. Not as easy as it sounds. There's the engineering side of safety, which we know that we've got all of our instructions and manuals and engineering to point us to, but there's the human factor that's involved in safety. And so that's the education and communication component of our transportation system. I also attended the South County Area Transportation Board meeting, and that was held today. We are, during COVID, doing joint meetings with the East Side Transportation Board as well as Seashore. So all of the King County boards are meeting at one time. We had a presentation from Metro on the impacts of COVID to their service, and looked at where transit ridership has dropped dramatically and where it's stayed steady or come back. Not surprising, South County has had continuous ridership in the Metro system. And again, that points back to the fact that we've got a significant number of essential workers that rely heavily on transit to get back and forth to work. So a lot of just reinforcement of the things that I know our council is very aware of and concerned about, and that Metro is definitely highlighting. We also talked about continuing these meetings with all three transportation boards and the value in that, because we're all dealing with the same issues when it comes to transportation here in the region. So we're going to continue that through January. That ends my report. And so with that, I will turn it over to our Chief Administrative Officer, Derek Matheson.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Ralph. I have a few items here. First, wanted to let the council know that we expect to share 2 equity-related items with the council at your Committee of the Whole meeting next Tuesday, September 22nd. The first item is a matrix that prioritizes and sequences an ambitious list of equity initiatives that the mayor, city council, and executive leadership team have developed in recent months. The second is a draft resolution that sets forth the city council's expectations in the equity space. And that resolution will be based in large part on council members' one-on-one conversations with the police chief last month. Also wanted to note the mayor's office and finance department will share the mayor's final decisions about the 2021-22 operating and capital budgets with department directors tomorrow. That's a key step as we prepare for the mayor to present her proposed budget to the council at a special meeting on September 29th. And we have a couple of budget-related public hearings coming up here in a couple of minutes. Also wanted to say congratulations to our multimedia team, and especially to Alex Klinger and Steve Vaught, who council members see around town behind the camera all the time. They were nominated for three national awards from NATOA, which is the National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Advisors, and recognizing their video work, and they came in first place for all 3 awards. The winning videos highlighted the Lunar Rover Festival, the parks hiring video, and Shop with a Cop. Wanted to note we do have an executive session this evening. The topic is litigation. Expected time is 10 minutes with no action when we reconvene in open session. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Derek. Council President Troutner, council member reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am going to start with our workshop that we had earlier this evening. We had two presentations. The first one was on Sound Transit Federal Way Link Extension update. Things are really progressing, especially with the Kent Des Moines station area. So if you recall, we have two stations coming to Kent Des Moines station, and then the Star Lake station at 272nd. And as I mentioned, lots of work going on there. Keep in mind our workshops are televised, so I encourage you to go back and take a look at that. If you didn't watch earlier this evening, there's some great pictures that show before and after, and some drone images that really show all of the work that's been done recently. So pretty impressive. And we have a great team that even with COVID challenges, they're still getting the work done and staying on time with that, hopefully being online and ready to go by 2024. So good things happening there. Also, with that project in particular, there are going to be some pieces of artwork going up next month. So keep an eye around for that. If you're up in that construction area, there's going to be 58 murals around the construction site, 8 different local artists that have participated in that project, and they'll be up for the next several years. So keep an eye out for that. The other workshop presentation was a transportation master plan financial update. And as you know, some of you may have seen there is a survey out on the projects for the transportation master plan. Those are currently circulating around social media. So if you haven't had a chance to participate in that, I encourage you to. What it will help do is prioritize some of the projects that need to be done over the next several years. So moving along with that, it will come back to Committee of the Whole in October with an update of that survey. There are definitely more projects. The expense for those exceeds the amount of money that's available in the budget. So lots of prioritizing will happen with those projects, and that's where they're asking for input from the public. So again, if you have not done that survey, please take a look at that. There's also a website. It is, the website is kenttmp.com, where there's more information on the projects as well. I also sit on the Regional Transit Committee. We meet tomorrow. Regional Law, Safety, and Justice, we meet on the 24th. So nothing new to report on my regional committees. And now I will look to my colleagues for what they have been up to, and I will start with Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Council President. I serve on the Regional Water Quality Committee, and this past meeting we had 2 briefings on 2 different reports. And the first one was on biosolids, which is some of the leftover stuff from wastewater treatment facilities. And currently those biosolids are being used to amend soils on farms and public forests. And so the report did an analysis of cost and benefits on what else we could do with those biosolids, because there are some concerns that they're not necessarily beneficial for forests. So we talked about what some of the alternatives are. And then the second report was on nitrogen removal. Most water treatment plants are not capable of removing nitrogen. And so we discussed other ways to remove the nitrogen, one of which was removing it before it gets to the wastewater treatment. And so both of those reports will help inform the upcoming King County Clean Water Plan. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Kaur, do you have anything to report?
Thank you. Yes, I serve as the chair for Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Advisory Council, and we met on September 9th. We had update on transportation climate planning from the staff. Obviously, they've been working on this for a while, and currently they're in community outreach processes. So they're doing input sessions with the community, with tribal nations and local environmental justice organizations. So far in the transportation climate planning action, they have divided into 4 categories: advancing vehicle technology for both light duty and heavy duty vehicles, cleaner fuels, and mode shift planning and pricing. They identified 7 actions in advancing vehicle technology for light duty, which includes cash for clunkers program or something similar for less fuel efficient vehicles. For a heavy duty sector, require port drayage trucks to be zero emission by 2050 and promoting greater low carbon fuels at airports. So that should definitely benefit our communities down here in South King County. And some of the other actions they have are due to COVID, developing information and resources to promote telework for employers and for people, regional electrification coordination, and obviously reducing solo driving. So they are working on community sessions, like I said, right now, and we'll be having our next meeting in October. I also serve on Association of Washington Cities Equity Work Group, and we are having our meeting tomorrow. I also serve on Growth Management Planning Council, and we are meeting next month, so I'll have more updates then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you, Council President. So I serve on the King County Aging and Disabilities Advisory Council, and we met last Friday. We had our monthly update from King County Health, and just echoing the same thing the mayor said. In the senior population, the case counts are trending downward, which is positive, just encouraging especially our senior and vulnerable populations to continue the healthy COVID habits that they've put in place, because we are seeing progress. And then our other presentation was from the Northwest Health Law Advocates, who were coming to the Advisory Council asking for support of a state advocacy for increasing the measurement Washington State uses for Medicaid. I want to make sure I get this right. For the Medicaid limits, there's an issue that happens called the Medicare cliff when you are a low-income individual on Medicaid and turn 65. There is a gap where, because of the way incomes are calculated, you can actually end up paying 2 to 4 times more than somebody who had not actually even qualified for the low-income Medicaid. So there's this Medicare cliff for certain individuals at a certain income level when they turn 65. So if anybody is finding themselves in that situation, I would encourage you to reach out to the Northwest Health Law Advocates. They had a great presentation, very much in depth on this issue and how it affects different income levels. And so we signed in support of increasing the federal poverty level minimum calculation that Washington is using it to bring it more on par with other states and hopefully eliminate that cliff. I also serve on the King County Affordable Housing Committee, and we will be meeting on September 30th. So I'll have that report at the next meeting. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I'd like to say my report is not as exciting as Councilmember Michaud, but I will try to top that though. So I sit on the Sound City Association PIC committee as vice chair. We met last Wednesday. I have a very light agenda. One of the things we talked about is the legislative agenda. And something we are looking at is affordable houses and the homeless crisis, investment in transportation, fully funding public work trust fund, and another one is locality, which is around local decision. I think we as a city, Madam Mayor, you guys are looking at the legislative agenda right now, and hope to be able to compare those two, and we as a council get to look at it probably sometime in the future. Then also the other thing is the King County Housing Committee is looking at raising the sales tax 0.1%, and that money will be used to support affordable housing. I think one other option is that this is probably going to happen. The city also have an option of doing this here. I guess if the city would go and do it, they have some say so on how to spend that money, and then if the King County raise it, then we have less say so. I think, Madam Mayor, you correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's my understanding of that. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Before I move on to Councilmember Fincher, I see that Councilmember Kaur, did you have your hand raised? I apologize.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I failed to mention that we also have unhealthy air quality heading our way again on Wednesday. That's part of the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. And there is a fire ban in most parts of King County, and fines for illegal fires are typically around $2,000. So just letting the public know, and just be careful for the next few days, especially infants, individuals with health conditions, over 65, and those who are pregnant. So stay safe. Thank you.
Great information. Thank you for sharing. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Vice Chair of the King Conservation District. We will have a meeting in October, and following up on what Councilmember Kaur just announced, you can imagine that the fires, both the fires in the forest and the fires that happen that are not in forest, are both of grave concern to us. And just a reminder to people, both in the city and without, that there is a FireWise program through King Conservation District to help eliminate the possibility of fires on your property. We have the Mental Illness and Drug Dependency Advisory Council. We meet Thursday of next week. So on the 24th, we will have our meeting. We took the month of August off, and so no report for that. And Arts Commission, there was some vandalism up at the artwork in Mill Creek Park. And so one of the fixes that they are looking at has not been decided what they will do, but painting where some of the glass pieces were broken off. So they might paint those areas in an attempt to help save the rest of the artwork. We have the quarantine art, which is with Kent Creates. Quite a few people, it turns out, had creativity and creative ways in displaying their thoughts and emotions during this quarantine project. And so quarantine art closes September 30th. So that's at kentcreates.com. If you want to enter, be sure that you do that before September 30th. And we are still looking at, with COVID-19, things are still not settled as far as the performing arts program. So still hoping to be able to do some performances in person, but at this point, also looking at options for online. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher. And Councilmember Thomas would remind everyone that he is on the Puget Sound Regional Governance Board along with Councilmember Boyce and myself, and we have a meeting tomorrow evening. So thank you very much to all of you for sharing, and that ends our reports, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. As you can hear, your city council is very, very busy representing Kent and making sure that we are at the table. Thank you, council, for all of the work that you do outside of these meetings. All right, we are going to move on tonight. We have two public hearings. The first public hearing we have is on the 2021-2022 biennial budget. I will explain the process and we'll move into the hearing. Staff will give a presentation and then I'll invite the public to provide testimony, written statements, or other evidence. Public input must relate to the subject of the public hearing. Council members may ask questions during the hearing. If you're in the virtual meeting or on the phone line, you will be provided with an opportunity to speak shortly. At this time, I will open the first public hearing for 2021-2022 biennial budget. It is now open, and I would ask the Finance Director, Paula Painter, to make a presentation on this matter.
Thank you, Mayor Ralph. Good evening, Mayor Ralph, Council President, and members of the City Council. I am Paula Painter, the Finance Director, and I am very excited to be here tonight to do the first public hearing on the 21-22 biennial budget. So we are in the final stages of putting together the mayor's preliminary budget. The mayor is planning to present her proposed budget to City Council on Tuesday, September 29th at a special meeting that will begin at 5 o'clock. This year, our budget process started later than usual. However, it may have started later than usual, but I think that we were actually thinking about the 21-22 budget even before we typically were, as the city was looking at the needed budget reductions that were necessary due to the impacts of COVID. We began to also keep in mind the fact that as we go into each biennium, we have often seen a structural imbalance. So we had that in the forefront of our minds as we were working on this budget. The mayor's proposed budget is balanced and sustainable for the next biennium. We have presented multiple times some general budget assumptions that are going into this budget. One thing to keep in mind, what you're seeing in front of you is the general fund assumptions. There's a lot of movement in some of the revenues that you'll see in the general fund. The sales tax related to annexation has been discontinued. We did a lot of the accounting for annexation within the general fund, and that's going to account for some of what you're seeing in the reductions in revenue related to 2021 and 2022, particularly in the realm of sales tax, state shared revenues. The other adjustments that you see in the budget is keeping in mind some of the impacts of COVID-19. Now, granted, we still don't have a magic ball yet to be able to tell us what those numbers are really going to look like, but this is a very conservative approach to forecasting revenues, particularly within the general fund. And finally, the baseline assumptions that went into the expenditures. We do have COLAs and CPIs that are applied to each year of the biennium. The CPI for 2021 is 1%. That has been confirmed earlier this summer. And then also we saw increases in our retirement contribution rates. These are on the employer side. The employee side did stay the same. And then in addition, we had seen increases in medical at 3.8% and supplies and services at about 2%. And that would end my discussion on the 21-22 biennial budget.
All right. Thank you, Paula, very much. Council, do you have any questions for Paula at this time? Pull my list back up there. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. So with that, we will move on to public testimony. Kim, do we have anyone signed up or on the call to provide public testimony?
I do not have anybody in the meeting, or I did not receive any comment.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move on in the public hearing process. We don't have anything to submit to the record or anyone on the line to testify. So we will move on to a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The public hearing is now closed. Council, any questions or conversation at this point?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make a point for the people who's watching us that, you know, even though the council may not have any question, we have spent numerous of hours and weeks looking at this here. And I think for the most part, we've got a good understanding on where we're at and where we will need to go. So I just want to make a comment. Thank you.
No, thank you for that, Councilmember Boyce. And also just to know, this can sometimes be a very confusing process that we're having a public hearing before the budget is presented. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Really, this is so we're required to hold these public hearings, and it is an opportunity for the community to weigh in advance of me presenting the budget to the council at the end of the month. And there will be continued opportunity for the community to weigh in as council deliberates on the budget, which will not be voted on until probably the second meeting in November. So I think it's important. It's a little bit of a confusing process. So thank you, Councilmember Boyce, for bringing that up so we can clarify that. With that, we will move on to our second public hearing. All of those same things that we just talked about apply here. This is the public hearing for the 2021 to 2026 Capital Improvement Program. Staff will provide a presentation, will invite public testimony or written comment. Council members have the opportunity to ask questions during the presentation. With that, we will open the first public hearing of the 2021 to 2026 Capital Improvement Program. And I will ask our Finance Director, Paula Painter, to make a presentation.
Great. Thank you again for having me this evening. This is the first public hearing of the city's 21-26 Capital Improvement Plan. The Capital Improvement Plan is required component of the Growth Management Act, which was passed by Washington State Legislature in 1990. To meet the requirement, the city creates a 6-year capital improvement plan. Now, this plan will lay out recommended financing methods to cover recommended projects to meet the public facility needs to maintain our current established levels of service. The CIP is adopted by ordinance, and at that time, it does update the city's comprehensive plan. The first 2 years of the plan are included in the 21-22 budgets. As you can see from this layout here, it's going to show you that there's a variety of sources that fund the various capital improvement plans, from city capital resources to utility resources, and then to other resources, which could include grants, etc. This is that 6-year plan, and that would conclude my presentation on the city's 2021-2026 Capital Improvement Plan public hearing.
All right, thank you, Paula. Council, any questions for Paula before we find out if we've got anyone on the line to provide comment? All right, I'm not seeing any. Kim, is anyone signed in, or did you receive any written statements?
I do not have anybody on the meeting, and I did not receive any written comment.
All right, then with that, a motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move to close this public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0. The public hearing is now closed. And like I said before, there is continued opportunity for the public to provide comment on the budget and the capital plans going forward at each council meeting and in the second round of public hearings. So still time to weigh in if you've got things you'd like to see in our upcoming budget. All right, with that, we are going to move into public comment. During the coronavirus emergency, the public will not have the opportunity to comment live, but we are taking written comments. They may be submitted to the email address citycouncil@kentwa.gov, or an opportunity if you'd like to call them in at 253-856-5700. I do have a letter that was submitted this afternoon and asked to be read in during public comment. It is from Cox Automotive, and the gentleman's name that submitted this letter is Eddie Lafferty, the general manager of Mannheim, Seattle. I will go ahead and read the letter. Dear honorable members of the Kent City Council, I respectfully request that the Kent City Council pull item 8E, ordinance extending the square footage component of the city's B&O tax to include outdoor warehousing activities from tonight's consent agenda of the City Council regular meeting, and consider rescheduling the item for future meeting of the Kent City Council. I also request that this letter be read during public comment period of tonight's City Council meeting. For decades, Mannheim, Seattle has connected buyers and sellers to the largest used vehicle marketplace. The operation is a part of Manheim, a Cox automotive brand headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. Manheim Seattle remarkets tens of thousands of vehicles per year, serving independent and franchise auto dealers, as well as factory and fleet customers. Traditionally offering 10 physical sales lanes, the auction now conducts 100% of its sales via digital platforms. Manheim Seattle is also a proud supporter of numerous community initiatives, including longstanding relationships with the Boys and Girls Club, American Red Cross, and the 2019 launch of Kyle Petty's Ride Across America to support the Victory Junction charity. We appreciate the city's willingness to partner with Manheim on modifications to the city's tax code and welcome the opportunity to discuss ways to apply it uniformly and equitably. However, we have significant concerns with the ordinance as currently drafted and would appreciate more time to fully assess it. We have engaged in preliminary discussions with the city's Chief Economic Development Officer, William Ellis, and the city's Finance Director, Paula Painter, along with other key members of City of Kent staff, to attempt to understand the application and impact of the proposed ordinance on Manheim Seattle operations. We are also in the process of creating an internal work stream with key members of our finance and tax teams and have contracted the help of local tax experts to identify the expected fiscal impact. That said, due to the variety of COVID-19 related circumstances, we have not yet been able to fully assess the impact of the new tax. Manheim Seattle shut down operations for several months and was among the last sites in the nation to restart limited operations due to the state mandates and public health orders. COVID-19 also accelerated Manheim's pivot to digital sales nationwide, necessitating a significant transformation in operations and a wholly different analysis as it relates to B&O tax calculations. As with many other businesses, COVID-19 has forced us to update our operations to be more flexible and mindful of team member safety. We understand the city's efforts to pursue a more equitable tax code that captures the full impact of outdoor warehousing activities on city infrastructure. We have always appreciated the collaborative spirit and business-friendly environment that the City of Kent has established and believe that this issue is an opportunity to continue our partnership. We respectfully request the City Council take more time to consider the impact to all businesses in the city, especially in light of the unique circumstances of this year, and look forward to getting the opportunity to discuss these issues in depth with city staff. Okay, Kim, do we have any other public comment for this evening?
I do not.
All right, thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to the consent calendar. These are items that the council has reviewed, discussed, and worked on at the committee of the whole over the last couple of weeks. There was a change that was adopted by the council at the beginning of this meeting to move item E, the ordinance extending the square footage component of the city's B&O tax to other business, and then adding a new item E, which is an excused absence for Council Member Thomas. With that, is there a motion to accept the consent calendar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to accept consent calendar items A through E.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0. With that, we will move on to item number 9, which is other business, and that is the ordinance extending the square footage component of the city's B&O tax to include outdoor warehousing activities. And we have our Finance Director, Paula Painter, joining us for a short presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Ralph, Council President Troutner, and members of the City Council. Thank you again for having me here tonight. In front of you, you have an ordinance that actually was introduced to you at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week related to extending the square footage component of the city's B&O tax to include outdoor warehousing activities. The primary purpose of this ordinance is really to promote taxpayer equity between businesses that are conducting certain warehousing activities. Currently, that square footage tax is being applied to only those activities that are confined within 4 walls. However, that same activity is actually taking place in a commercial yard as well, so outside of those walls. And ultimately, what it is doing is equalizing that tax amongst both of those the same industries being performed in different areas. One of the reasons for this too, not only is for equity, is that whether you're conducting business within the confines of four walls or outside of a facility, it still requires the same level of amenities and services to be provided by the city as in both of those cases. The city did put forth some extensive outreach to all the businesses that we thought could potentially be impacted by this. Some of the people we reached out to, it really did not apply to them. Others, it did. After the meeting last week, we really worked hard to be able to get in touch with additional businesses that we hadn't had that opportunity to connect with. Just to give you a little background, is to those companies that we felt were impacted, we sent 2 letters, one on May 20th and the other on June 29th. Both of those letters were encouraging those organizations to please reach out to us. We would love to sit down with them and have a conversation about this. I know during the public comment, there was a letter that was read by one of those organizations, and that was Mannheim. Mannheim did receive both of those letters that we sent. In total, we had 4 attempts to be able to engage with them over this period of time since May, the first 2 attempts being those letters. We did have a meeting scheduled with them in July, at the end of July. That one was canceled. And not rescheduled, and that was canceled on behalf of Mannheim, not the city. In addition, we were continuing to reach out to them and were able to connect with them today to have a discussion about their concerns and this tax and it is our intent to continue those discussions beyond this point to ensure that we're able to address any questions that they have related to this tax. In addition, over the last week since we met with you last, we have been able to connect with several other organizations who could have potentially been impacted by this. Again, some of them, it did not apply to them, and others were at least noted that they did receive the emails and that we did reassure them that we are available to continue to meet with them should they have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Council, any questions for Paula or opportunity for discussion? Okay, Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also, I want to say thank you, Paula, for the presentation. I know in our workshop, I did bring up the fact that are we really reaching out? And in this case here, there was plenty effort to really reach out to the business. I did talk to Mr. Bernard, and I think he played a role in Mayhem today. The thing that I expressed to him really is really about equity, right? For the longest time, business did not pay B&O taxes in the city of Kent, and then we implemented it. And I expressed to him that we really tried to continue to make Kent a friendly place of business for the in city of Kent, and he understood it as we had our conversation. At the end of the day, I think as I expressed to him, this don't get implemented till the first of the year. If he have other data that he can bring to us to justify his case, and I think our team would be willing to listen to that. Also, at the same time, we do have business that pay taxes in Kent, and in this case here for our roads, big trucks that impact our road, we need to make sure that we can have the roads be redone. So I just think, this is a good thing. It's all about equity, everybody paying their fair share, and we will always continue to make Kent a friendly place for business. So I just want to thank Paula for her presentation.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyce. Any other discussion or questions regarding this issue? Council President Troutner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Paula, for that clarification, and thank you, Bill, for your comments as well. This is something council has been talking about for quite some time, and I just want to say thank you. I know especially Bill Ellis reached out to all of these businesses, and again, we asked for him to reach out again after our last meeting. So I just want to thank everyone for all the work they did behind the scenes to make sure we did our part to notify these businesses and get in touch with them as well. So thank you for that piece.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So with that, would council like to offer a motion?
I have a motion, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4368, amending section 3.28.050 of the Kent City Code to extend the square footage component of the City of Kent business and occupation tax to include outdoor warehousing activities.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries 6-0. I do want to reassure council as well as Mannheim Automotive that we will continue conversations with them as far as the implementation of this tax and open to that ongoing dialogue. So this is not the end of the conversation. Want to make sure that we are the purpose behind this was absolutely equity among our businesses. We want to make sure that it's applied equitably. So there will be more meetings and we'll keep you all posted. But thank you very much for passing this evening. This money will go a long way in our capital budget towards making sure that this city continues to be a place businesses want to locate and people want to live. So thank you for that. With that, we will move on in the agenda. Item number 10 is bids. We do not have any this evening. We do, however, have an executive session. Item number 11, it is going to be regarding current or potential litigation. We're anticipating 10 minutes and there will not be action following our executive session. So with that, we will now turn off the public viewing and the council will go into executive session. All right, I'd like to welcome everyone back. The council is coming back out of executive session discussing current or potential litigation. At this point, we have no additional action on our agenda. Want to remind everybody to continue to wear your mask, wash your hands, be safe, stay out of the smoke, burn ban on, all kinds of rules happening right now, but we need to keep each other healthy and safe. Take care of your neighbors, take care of each other, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.